Blog Talk Radio.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing. Share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directed to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, Executive Producer of the Female Solution Radio Show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, bonjour. In Spain, hola. In Italy, ciao. In Egypt, ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, akwaba. In Nigeria, paleo. In South Africa, sawubona. In Senegal, nangadef. In Kenya, jambo. In Israel, shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network. Call 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you. Hi, I'm Naima Latif. And if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all. Race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex?
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money. The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating, empowering, interactive conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Gathering of the Griots with Asada. Wednesdays, Repairing Family Relationships with Naima and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Veggie Brunch Live with Angela. Fridays, Health and Well-Being with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Global Talks with Zana. Second Saturday, Walk in Your Divine Authority with Mama Joy. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. Fourth Saturday, be a judge on the virtual Teens, Tweens, and Tots Talent Contest. And fifth Saturday, join us on location as we conversate at the Elevate Cafe, owner Jackie Brooks. Sundays, join us 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Go to thefemalesolution.com to join us on our video or audio live streaming platforms. Listen at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in on the Blog Talk Radio Network 515-605-9325 or call in and comment on the On-Air Radio Network 727-731-5192. We want to hear from you.
I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating, empowering, interactive conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Gathering of the Griots with Asada. Wednesdays, Repairing Family Relationships with Naima and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Veggie Brunch Live with Angela. Fridays, Health and Well-Being with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Global Talks with Zana. Second Saturday, Walk in Your Divine Authority with Mama Joy. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. Fourth Saturday, be a judge on the virtual Teens, Tweens, and Tots Talent Contest. And fifth Saturday, join us on location as we conversate at the Elevate Cafe, owner Jackie Brooks. Sundays, join us 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Go to thefemalesolution.com to join us on our video or audio live streaming platforms. Listen at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in on the Blog Talk Radio Network 515-605-9325 or call in and comment on the On-Air Radio Network 727-731-5192. We want to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Yes, Grand Rising, and thank you all for joining us on Female Solution Global Radio TV Show. I'm Naima Latif, and we're joined with our co-host Kareem Hamid and our American Muslim 360 family, and we're so excited because we also are able to talk to you.
So, Grand Rising, my brother. Thank you so much for hooking us up.
Well, alhamdulillah, praise be to Almighty Allah. And it is wonderful to hear your voice once more on one of the most progressive broadcasts in America, the female solution. Praise be to Allah.
Yes, yes.
Push the female solution. Thank you, my sister.
Absolutely. Well, we most certainly do need some solutions. And today we want to talk about a situation that happens in many families, but they are unprepared. These are times when many of us are thinking about those loved ones who have transitioned, and it's difficult during the holiday season when that person is absent. But often what happens in families is that a parent may have a tragic, unexpected end, whether a car accident or sudden, unexpected illness that takes them out of here. And when they have minor children, often the family is unprepared to handle it. So there are children who end up in foster care every year because family members are unsure who is able to handle the responsibility of raising them. So today we have asked the question, and we want to hear from our listeners and viewers, especially those who may have had a situation where they've had to step up and be that parent to a child who was suddenly orphaned. So if you haven't thought about it, we certainly advise you to think about it today, because you never know when it could happen, especially if you have minor children. So we've asked the question, who would you trust to raise your children? And we certainly want to hear from those who may have had to step in and raise other people's children. There are many grandparents right now who are on their second go round of raising children unexpectedly because something happened to their children, or perhaps even their son or daughter-in-law's children, whatever the case may be. They found themselves having to raise children, and sometimes you're unprepared. Sometimes it's a long process of the state trying to determine if there are family members, and sometimes children spend a long time in foster care, which is very emotionally scarring. So when that happens, we see the effects of it in the school system. Sometimes a child's education is disrupted, and sometimes teachers are sensitive to the issue and sometimes they're not. When that child's life has been totally turned upside down, they're not going to be consistent with homework or behavior. And sometimes schools don't have counselors on staff to get to the bottom of why a child might be suddenly acting out. And sometimes school staff can be aware that there's been a death in the family, and they expect the child just keep on going like nothing happened after the funeral. It's like, okay, let's get back to work. And that doesn't happen because you don't know what child's life might have devolved into based on who has to now be the parent that may be resentful of having to be the parent. You know, I had a student, and we were just in 4th grade, and something had happened in the family to his mother, and so his grandfather had to take over. And I guess he was going through a bout of misbehaving, and his grandfather said to him, "You know what? I'm just gonna send you back and have the foster people take you." And the child, of course, was devastated. So when he came to school, he was sullen, he was angry, he was snapping at everybody and about to fight the children. And when I pulled him aside, because that's what I would do often. I was like the teacher assistant that would handle the children that were out of sorts to find out what was really the underlying problem. And when he told me that story, what his grandfather said, I was just appalled. And I understand children can be overwhelming, but if you don't have the temperament for it, maybe either take some classes or try to find some type of help with another family member. So we've asked a question for those people who may still be raising minor children to think about preparing for their future if something were to happen to you. Who would you trust to raise your children? That is the question today. And those that are answering that question unexpectedly. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have grandchildren that you take care of time or have had to step in and take care of?
I'm praising to Allah. This is close to home with me. I may have been 8 or 9 years old. And upon my mother's passing, there were family members that approached my father asking for certain members of my siblings, Miss Jenny, Aunt Carrie, there were people that wanted to help my father in the rearing of home. But he and my mother had made a promise to each other that if one of them suddenly died, that the surviving member would keep the family together. And that obligation came to my father.
Oh my.
And he warded off, I'm quite sure, the well-meaning of those that wanted to raise. It's not like they would take the whole, it was 5 of us. It's not like they would take all, that they would separate us. One go to this house and one go to that house. And that went against the promise that my father made my mother, that he would keep us together. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the state had entered into that situation. And there were certain things that he had to have in order to be the sole surviving of that marriage and the raising of the children. And one of the stipulations was that there had to be a woman in the home. And thank God my father and my mother had a very close friend. And she agreed to be what we would call our governess, so that he could meet the requirements of the state. And I must say, he did keep us together. We were raised under the same household. Had we been separated, that kind of a distance between when you're raised in one household and another one is raised in another household, and you contact each other on a daily basis, that creates kind of a separation, kind of a void thing. So I'm grateful to my father that he took the necessary steps to keep us together. Now, there are qualified people in our families that I'm quite sure would do an excellent job of stepping in and supporting the orphan. That's what we're speaking of, the care for the orphan. In religious life, the care of the orphan is a high priority. It is mentioned several times in Scripture. The care for the orphan is laudable, and it is a requirement of us, even if the person is not a family member. But we should have a concern for the children that do not have a home or have lost both parents or one. Our empathy and our support should go toward the orphan child, or he or she is just a small child, and don't have the emotional stability to truly understand what has just took place. What I remember feeling a sense of abandonment, because I loved my mother so much that she was no longer there. But thank God my father kept his promise, and he kept us all together. We were raised with each other. We know each other. There's a strong bond between us as siblings. And so this is a growing concern of orphans, of people that are orphaned, children that are orphaned. What obligation do we have toward them? I would say that we definitely have an obligation to care for the orphan, That is something that we should not ignore. And because children need to feel appreciated, they need to feel loved, they need to feel that they are a part of the structure, that they're not alone, that there are people that care for them. And when we hear of orphans acting out, becoming antisocial, or either become very disruptive, well, they have experienced a very traumatic experience in their life. It is traumatizing to lose a parent. So these things have to be worked out. They have to be, I suggest a qualified person sit and talk with that child and listen and reassure them of their safety and security. It is very important because the main subject matter is the condition of that child, a powerless child. And we should be concerned about their well-being, and especially their mental and emotional state after having lost a parent. Conversations should be held around that. If the child is willing to have that conversation with you, because I'm quite sure there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of feelings that need to be answered. So we do have an obligation to the orphan. In the Quran, the orphan is mentioned with the care of the orphan. So if we have family members that we know and we trust and we appreciate their character, then before anything happens, this conversation should be held. We hear of the designation of a godparent. When someone asks, will you be a godparent to my child? They are really saying, if I'm not here, will you care for my child as if they were your own? It's just not something we slough off. Yeah, I'm so-and-so's godparent. Yeah, but are you willing to truly do exactly that? A parent given to them by God, although you are not the original parent. Parenting is something that cannot, and it can be given to any child. We all we all have that necessary ingredient within us, parenting, to be parents. Even if the child is not your blood relationship, you still have the skills and the mindset and the heart to parent that child. This is most important. So I would suggest to the listening audience, if you would, look throughout your family to see, is there someone that you can trust your children to if something were to happen to you? The subject matter is the child, the importance of rearing that child. I'll stop at that, my sister. I look forward to hearing from the listening audience on this most serious subject matter that you have presented us with this morning.
Well, I'm glad that you explain that title of godparent, because there are a lot of people who have been given the title of godparent and they really didn't know that that's what it means, that you are agreeing to be that person to step in just in case something happens to the parent. And godparents are thinking that means, oh, well, I give them presents on their birthday and things like that. But as far as being that person that will be the parent in case God takes away their original parent, they really have thought it and prepared for it. So if you're somebody's godparent, you know, if you've had a friend who's had a baby and they want to make you the godparent, and you figure, okay, I can send birthday presents and I can send money sometimes. If you're thinking that's all it is, no, it's more than that. It is that agreement to step in case it's necessary.
We on the studio board that have raised their hand name, whenever you are ready, I'll open up their mic.
Well, we can open up the mic. You know, I had a bit of technical difficulty this morning, so we ran a whole bunch of commercials. So I'll just keep right on through until the 8 o'clock hour, just because I think our audience probably saw a bunch of commercials already. So we'll take the callers. Yes.
Okay. Area code 727-711. Name and where you're calling from.
Martha Nyla Abdullah, calling from St. Petersburg, Florida. And greetings of peace to you and Nima and all the listeners. Imam Kareem Hamid.
Greetings of peace to you.
Thank you. You know, I was often asking myself, why, you know, because when I was giving birth to my children, and it was an instituted process, tradition in the Baptist church where I was raised, and if, you know, individuals upon the birth, they would select godparents or ones who come forward and say, use that language, godparents. And I later on began to ask myself, okay, so how does that make my children feel if I say, then I have a goddaughter, you know, and it's, wow, okay, aren't they all from Almighty God? Nevertheless, as the children would be, yes, my interpretation at the time too was, even when sickness, you know, of the children and assisting the parents with the children, as well as, you know, financial means or what have you, and the situation with myself, Kareem, thank you for sharing your history. My mother took in, without saying they're godchildren, or she didn't take them in to stay, but she helped the family with once individuals moved from another location from where she was born, and they come to see her as a stepping step, you know, to allow them to come in and work. This is being a young child, but they still needed help and to get up on their own feet. That's why you put it, you know, get on your own feet.
Mm-hmm.
So she played that role if you will, without identifying her as being their godparent. And then myself taking on that kind of role in the neighborhood with children, because you see it as caring. And my mother also, when some parents died of a particular family, the children remained in the home because it was paid for, and my mother looked out for them.
Mm.
So I think without even the language of saying being the godparent, it's a parent, period, to those children in need, and especially in a community setting. So yes, alhamdulillah, my children did, quote unquote, godparents. My one son had three, and they three took very much care and attention to him. May Allah be pleased with him, grant him high station in paradise. He was my middle son, and alhamdulillah, but they were right there when I got ready to go to work, and I need baby care and child care, whatever. They were right there. So I'm thankful for that. Thank you so much for the subject. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much, Sister Martha, for weighing in on that. Yeah, you know, that really points out why it's important to be a part of a community, because you need to have people you can rely on. Some of them are not blood relatives, but they're people whose character you can trust. And that's the big thing. You have another caller there that wants, you can bring in also.
No, they have hung up. They are no longer present. But I invite them to press on your phone. We look forward to hearing from you on this important subject matter. Okay, we have another caller on the line. I'm going to open up the mic of Bilal. He's the poet laureate of American Muslim. I'm
pick up on. I hope I'm about to do this right now. And I had a like big a pretty called my godfather, right? And the godfather only messed with me because I was in New Orleans. He stayed like in the country town, right? And the godfather to me was just I can always get money from when I come in town, you know. Because, you know, and but he in the neighborhood, like what we always said, play AT, uncle, cousin, you know, and it'd be just like, you know, like I would cousin my AT, and the, you know, the one with my behind send me home to get another one and stuff like that. So but my godfather, he was always I can go in and get money. That's what that was about with him. But anyway, I wanted to share that.
Well, thank you for that. You know, that's what a lot of people think. That's what a godparent is, and that's what they kind of use them for. Okay, it has been fine. So yeah, and thank you for being honest. And I think that's what a lot of children did. Oh, this is my godmother, this is my godfather, you know, and yeah, they're the ones who would give you money. And a lot of times that's what they thought. Okay, you know, give them money, you know, buy them presents, that sort of thing. And the situation never came up where they had to actually step in and be the parent because, you know, nothing happened to the birth parents. Thank God for that. But that truly is what that title implies, if in fact the parents are not to be present. I would say that your godfather could have been your you know, the one who was your godfather. He could have been somebody who could take care of you, or he didn't have the lifestyle that probably would have allowed that. What do you think?
He was every time I used to go to meet him, he was always over there playing cards, you know. His cousin John, and so all I do after you know, at the gambling shack, the gambling ballroom, or the gambling house, and I go up there, you give me some money, and I go about my business.
Yes. Well, at least he did that. That was nice, you know.
Yeah.
But now that brings up a point, and I know there are a lot of times people might choose their good friend. You know, I want you to be a godmother to my child. I want you to be the godfather to my child. And, you know, that sounds good to be your best friend, but in reality, that best friend or that good friend that you grew up with, and you want them to be like an auntie or uncle to your children because you feel so close to them, but they might not be parent material. They might be that running buddy that, you know, likes maybe drink or hang out, and maybe they don't have their own children, and they might not be in a position to really parent your child in your absence. So that's something to think about as well. If you do name a good friend as a godparent, make sure you define what the expectation is. Is it just, you know, okay, you know, give them presents every now and then, show up at the birthday parties, give them money if you got it, you know, make them feel good, that kind of thing. But let it be known what your expectation is, because if you know they're not a person who is prepared to take care of a child, then don't put that burden on them. Or not, I wouldn't say burden, don't put that responsibility on them if you know that they are not that person. But I do think it's important to designate who is that person. And sometimes you need to put that in writing, because I've seen a lot of families where there's a real scramble to figure out what to do if something happens, even if it's a long-term illness that a parent has, if they're going to be in the hospital a long time. Sometimes there's a mental illness and they have to go away for a while for treatment. That can throw a family in shambles. They haven't prepared for somebody to take over, or even in situations where a child is just kind of shuffled from house to house because nobody's prepared, and then the child to act out because they're in distress, then nobody wants them because they're acting out, and instead of them realizing that that's the reason they're acting out, because they're in so much trauma, and nobody thinks to get counseling for the child or talk to the child or listen to the child and figure out how they're dealing with it, especially if they're a very young child. You can't expect them to just bounce back like everything is okay.
And my mama, she was like, everybody called her like Mama said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, she'll put people in place, but it was more like my teenage you know, friends from school and everything. You know, they come in, they get drunk, and then mom have to go eat on them, pick up some food, and then sometimes they just have to spend the night at the house. But when I got older and I had left out the house, I found out like many of the people that I knew that were little young kids, you know, they actually stayed here with my mom and dad and them. I didn't even know. They said, yeah, so-and-so stayed there, so-and-so stayed there. And so my son, he stayed there. I didn't even, you know, I found out all these people all this mom stayed there, and the house was for them, for people who got too drunk and too, you know, couldn't get home and everything. I see mom putting a blanket over them, you know, and they have to spend the night. Something like that, you know.
Yes.
It's like a 40 house, but at the same time, my mom and them took, you know, they took care of people that I didn't even know. But I remember when she passed, how the preacher was saying that Mama said your house was open to everybody. You know, some need a place to stay and different things like that. And I found out a little bit about that was the reality.
Wow.
You know, and I'm in that same house. Yeah, I'm in that same house right now, and mom and my dad is now like getting bad, and they gone though. But this ain't I'm gonna say your house more. I'm watching. You just can't come up again in any kind of way, you know. But
well, thank you for looking out for her house in her absence and keeping the legacy of alive.
I'm looking at the fact that I'm putting value on this house now that I never had before. Not because of the fact that I'm saying it, but the fact is that it was my mom in them house. They can be something they left for the children. And so I'm got the a lot of money got to be spent, but it's all.
Yay, it is worth it to keep the family legacy. Right. Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, because there are a lot of people who, there's always somebody either in the neighborhood or in the family who's that person who has an open door. And, if something happens, they got an extra room or extra blanket or whatever, you can spend the night. There's always that person who's big-hearted, and they might not have a lot, but they share a lot. Or the person who's, as a child, and we all had that, who's or whatever, was everybody would go over their house and they would fix cookies, and there was always the comfortable house, the welcome house where everybody can hang out, and you knew that sometimes you can spend the night there. Anything happened, there are people like that who just have that kind of heart, and they will welcome the neighborhood children. They'll be that person, that somebody who got kicked out the house, that friend that got kicked out the house, they come stay there. There's always those people who will welcome guests, and those are the kind of people who are prepared if there's an emergency to take another mile. Yes.
For godparent. Sometimes you'll pick somebody that says our running play. We go out together, we party, whatever the connection is.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll ask them if they will be, well, yeah, man, yeah. I have no problem with that. But in solution, the parent that is off, that they should look at, do this person have the same shared values?
That's important. That is real important.
Because some home life is not healthy. Yeah, he's your friend, but what's going on in his household?
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, his godfather was a gambler.
Mm-hmm.
He was always at a go. But it goes far beyond just supplying material needs.
Yes.
To be a parent.
Yes.
It is values, shared morals, the shared agreement of what is right and what is wrong. So that person that you choose should have the same or the same values that you have, or their values exceed what you have. So that is not just about the material.
Right.
The God person has to give guidance. And establish a value system in their ward, in that person that they have adopted. That's one of the most valuable things to be passed on, is an appreciated sense of values, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of character. Don't have when you step into those shoes, but you have to be qualified and make sure that you and y'all should discuss. Don't just say, well, you gave my child God. Oh, well, yeah, sure, girl. But y'all did not discuss the plans that you have for you.
Yes. Yeah, that's something, definitely you need to have a discussion. And even if you're thinking of making a family member that person who you would trust your children with, should something happen to you where you're no longer able or no longer present, whatever the case may be. Not everybody in the family has the same values, as you say, or even the same parenting style. Because, we talked about that my husband and I talked about that once my daughter was born, because I have two sisters and, he's got two brothers, and, we looked at who in the family would be prepared to take on a child. At the time when we were married, neither of his brothers were married. One is married now. And then of course my sisters, only one of them was married. The other one wasn't married yet, but now they're both married. But either way, we had to look at all kinds of, because, you want to, like you grew up in a household where it was necessary for a woman to be present, even though your father did a great job. But, you need that balance. So, love my brother-in-laws, but I would have not felt comfortable having a single male raising my child. And the issues surrounding our lifestyle, of course, we raising our daughter as Muslim, and that meant a whole set of values, and no drinking, no smoking, all those things, and then plus just a level of decency in your behavior, your conduct, your character, honesty, integrity, all those things, which I'm sure all of our family would have honored. But like you say, if you're thinking of someone raising your child, you're thinking of what is happening in their household, what kind of associates do they have, what kind of activities are they involved in, are they conscious that children shouldn't be exposed to certain things? And so we had to have that discussion and really honestly look at everybody and their values and say, would our child be safe being raised in this environment? And even we looked at even grandparents. Okay, what is the state of their health? Are they able to, if they had to? And both of our sets of grandparents, they had watched our child on occasion. His mother, his mother little. My parents were still both living, and so, but we had both sets of grandparents raise the child, and we always monitored what happened, what was the experience. I had to let my parents, look, we don't believe in corporal punishment. We know that's how you raised us, and that's why we don't believe in corporal punishment. Just saying, y'all got to figure out a way to be a little more patient, which they were. But there are things that you have to make sure whoever raises your child, that they honor if you do have a different way that you mold their character. And one of our hosts was telling a story about how she kind of struggled with that when she had to watch her grandchildren, and her grandson was kind of spirited, and she was kind of used to corporal punishment. Then one of our other hosts who written a book, of course, Asada, on Tuesdays, she's written a book, Beating Black Kids, which talks about why you shouldn't hit them. And Beata, who, was grandmother, was thinking, okay, how am I going to get this child to behave and not use corporal punishment? And sometimes those kinds of things are critical if you really feel strongly about that, and you have a person who has a parenting style that might be different than what you want your child raised in. So if that's the case, then maybe you need to talk it over and show them the techniques that you use if you think those old time techniques would be more destructive than helpful. So even the temperament of the person that's raising your child or may potentially raise your child, the skills, the style, the technique of correction of behavior, all of those things have to be taken into account, because if you have to entrust the raising of your child to someone else for whatever reason, you might be going through a long-term illness, might not even be a death. It might be just a long-term illness where you are in the hospital a long time. Your children or your child has to live with someone else because you're absent and not able to parent. You want to make sure that they're not wrecked during that time because of things that traumatize them, because the person who you entrusted to them didn't have the temperament to deal with how children express frustration and grief and anger and fear. Yes.
You know, that brings to my mind that something that happened in the lifetime of my mother. I had a very close friend. We were classmates, and we really got along well. He would visit our home, and one evening he visited our home, and I don't remember him leaving the house, but it was discovered later that he had hid behind our couch, behind the living room couch. He was seeking refuge, and the problem was he was being raised by his mother, and his mother whipped him with ironing cords.
Oh, wow.
And left webs and bruises on him. When it was discovered that he was in our home, my mother sat and talked with him, and he had expressed how he feared going home because he knew she would whip him with an ironing cord. Well, my mother had no legal standing in that. And we are talking about the 1950s, maybe. Yeah. And so we carried him back home. And my mother met with his mother. And I can't remember what they talked about, but there was a kind of a discussion.
Wow.
And my mother shared with her the statements that her son had made. We left, but his mother got the ironing cord once more.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You know, the frustration of being a single parent and the patience that it takes to be that is very important. But that brought to my mind that sometimes children choose to be orphans. They choose to leave home for whatever reason, that the environment is intolerable for them.
Yes.
And they seek refuge. So that happens also. Sometimes children escape from home. They don't just, the parent has not died, but the environment is so volatile that they run away from home or run away.
Yes, there are a lot of runaways.
That are aware of it. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, my sister.
Yeah, I was just saying, you know, there are a lot of runaways, and that is why, because they're being abused. And it's just recently where people have been instructed to report suspected abuse. I know teachers are supposed to report suspected abuse. And sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint if something is abuse or simply strict parenting, because we're often confused about that, especially people who grew up with corporal punishment. They can't identify when something is abuse because they may have grown up with abuse and it wasn't called abuse. We know that's what it is now. But because that's culturally how a lot of our families are, you know, you believe a child misbehaves, you beat them. So sometimes no one will say anything unless there are some visible scars, whip marks or something. Then somebody might say, well, maybe we should report it. But other than that, sometimes people have felt like, well, I should mind my own business. Well, parents do what they have to do to make children behave, whatever it is the philosophy is. And I know back in the day when we were raised, most of the time people did not interfere with parents as they whipped their children, because whipping was culturally accepted. And that's what makes it so hard. It was standard procedure. So nowadays, it's more awareness about what is inappropriate, but there's still a lot of confusion over at what point is a child being abused. And people can't quite agree, because a lot of parents still use corporal punishment. They don't know any other method, and they can't recognize when a child is expressing grief and frustration and fear and sadness, and they may be acting out and causing fights or talking back or whatever it is that they're doing that's an infraction. But because we don't know that children don't know how to express what they're going through, the first thing we latch on to is, oh, they're being disrespectful, let me punish them, let me hit them, and there we go. They're just creating more trauma. So those are things you have to think about and talk about when you look at who would you trust to raise your child. If there's an emergency, your child's going to be traumatized as it is. Who has the wisdom to step in and be that parent that your child is going to need in an emergency? So we're going to take a quick break, and later on in the show, I'm going to share with you all, those if you haven't seen it yet, I shared an experience after the passing of my husband. Of course, luckily my child she had just reached maturity. She was just turning 18, just leaving college. And it was not an easy thing. But we were able to discuss it before his transition. But still, there's a level of trauma that you go through when you're still growing and a parent departs. But I had an amazing experience that actually helped me get through it, because being widowed is not easy, as you know. However, I gave a message of hope about that. So anyway, first of all, we're going to take a quick break and come right back and continue our discussion on who would you trust to raise your children? So we'll be right back after this quick break. We want you all to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back after this quick break. I guess you have to mute my mic since I'm on the line. And we'll be right back after this quick break. So we want you all to stay with us. Give us a call, 515-605-9891. And also we'll take calls from our on-air radio network line. And we'll be right back after this break. So stay with us.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating, empowering, interactive conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Gathering of the Griots with Asada. Wednesdays, Repairing Family Relationships with Naima and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Veggie Brunch Live with Angela. Fridays, Health and Well-Being with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Global Talks with Zana. Second Saturday, Walk in Your Divine Authority with Mama Joy. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. Fourth Saturday, be a judge on the virtual Teens, Tweens, and Tots Talent Contest.
And fifth Saturday, join us on location as we conversate at the Elevate Cafe, owner Jackie Brooks. Sundays, join us 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Go to thefemalesolution.com to join us on our video or audio live streaming platforms. Listen at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in on the Blog Talk Radio Network 515-605-9325 or call in and comment on the On Air Radio Network 727-731-5192. We want to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, along with our co-host Kareem Hamid and our American Muslim 360 family. And you can give us a call, 515-605-9325. Or actually, you can give us a call at 515-605-9891. And you can reach us on the On Air Radio Network at 727-731-5192 because we want to hear from you. And as always, we appreciate your participation. You can write in your comments on our Facebook and YouTube channel. And that is, of course, Facebook, The Female Solution, and our YouTube channel, The Female Solution. So just go to Facebook or YouTube and write in your comments. Today, we are having a discussion about who you would trust to raise your children. And sometimes the person that you trust might be a good friend, but might not be the best parent material. So you have to really have that conversation as you prepare to plan your child's future, realizing that you might not be in it if unforeseen circumstances happen, or you might have to step away if unforeseen circumstances happen, unexpected illness, unexpected accident. Anything could happen that would take you away from your family, away from your child. And who would you trust if your child is still of minor age? Now, there's another thing also, and I believe we're back with our AM 360 family. There's another thing to think about. If your child is not quite an adult, but still not legally able to take care of themselves, how do you handle that? Let's say they're 17. They're not quite legally adult. They're still going to school. Something happens to you. technically they could sort of maybe manage, even if they got a little part-time job, but you know that they're not really ready for adulthood. How would you prepare somebody to take care of a teenager? Because, you know, teenagers, that's a different kind of thing. They're not as pliable in terms of being told what to do. And there are so many homeless teens because maybe something happened to the parents. There have been situations where parents have lost homes and been homeless, and shelters will not admit teenagers, particularly teenage boys. So you have a lot of young men who are out on the streets, nowhere to go, and nobody who will take them in because everybody's afraid of teenage boys. So, Kareem, what are your thoughts on that? How do we handle life for a teenage boy when the system doesn't always provide for them and they're not quite old enough to provide for themselves? What are your thoughts on that? And if there's anybody who's been in that situation, we certainly want to hear your thoughts. If you've ever been that teenage young man suddenly on your own and really needing parenting, but there's no one there. So how do we handle that as a society for our young men that are out in the street because of circumstances?
Yeah, that's a very crucial time period in our development. When we reach that period that has been designated as teenage, which is an artificial, made-up construct. When a child has reached that age, they're somewhat already molded. They have how can I put it? They are beyond the age of being a child. They are entering adulthood, and whether it's accepted or not, but they are adults. But they are adults with less respect. They don't have the wisdom yet, nor the, in a lot of cases, this is not general. And when you accept someone around that age in your home, there needs to be serious discussion upon what is acceptable and what is non-acceptable behavior. You know, Bilal mentioned of going over to someone's house where they accepted all the children in the neighborhood. I can remember, you know, growing up as a teen, that we would meet over to each other's houses, play records and dance, socialize. And in a lot of cases, when I look back on that, those homes were not supervised properly. You know, there was a looseness. And we would go there and play records and dance and shout and knock ourselves out and all of that. And the children might like that environment. Why? Because there's no supervision. There's no supervision, but that is not the best. That is not the best situation, especially for teenagers. There has to be a structure of behavior, a set of principles, and a set of morals that you must have that serious conversation with that loved one. It's very important because it is a daunting task to take charge of someone whose principles have already been set. But we are pliable, thank God. The human being is pliable, and God has blessed us with adaptation. We can adapt to different environments, but we have to be patient with someone of that age. And respect their intellect, although they may not have all the answers, but they're at that point in their life whereby there's a kind of a degree of wanting to be free.
Yes.
But yeah, so that freedom comes with responsibility.
Yes.
And that is most important, passed on especially at that age there, to be a responsible person. And teach them to not just rely on you, be responsible to themselves, to yourself. Don't treat yourself this way. Honor yourself. You are better than that. Express the excellence that is within them and what they can be. It's there. It's in you. But you have to submit to it. You have to recognize the value that is within you. And if it is guided in the right direction, you will be successful. But just freedom for freedom's sake, just do whatever you feel, whatever you want to do, that is a very, very dangerous environment and a dangerous situation to be in. So when we are mentoring children, and I use that word loosely, that's 16, not 15, 16 and 17, know that their mindset or the standards that they have adopted has been somewhat set. But that can be altered. If the mentor or the parent has the skills to truly bring out the best that is in someone of that age, because they're right at the threshold. They're right at the threshold of stepping into the open society. It is unforgiving. The open society that, that is unforgiving. And you want to make sure that they're able to manage their lives, to manage themselves, and avoid the pitfalls of that open door to so-called freedom that they long for. My thing is, put them in your car. Drive through some of the most uncivilized environments that in the city that you live in. Let them see what is the end result of not being responsible.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yes, I think that's a good idea. Let them see, and that is a way that those who have made bad choices in life can be a teaching tool, because there are reasons people end up indigent. And I'm not saying that everybody who's homeless should be looked down upon or blamed. But when you see people who are not able to overcome an alcohol or drug habit, and they apparently have burned all their friends, then that ends up being the result. If you have at least treated people well at some point in your life, even if you're down on their luck, you have somebody who's going to give you space in their home, even if it's just a couch to sleep on, rather than have you out in the street in the cold, unless you have burned people, unless you've done things where your presence is dangerous to their children, or your behavior is so outrageous and disruptive, they can't have you in their home. So generally, by the time a person is homeless, chronically homeless, and can't find anybody to give them help, it's because they've done some things that make it difficult for people to let them into their homes to share their space. And this is what you can show a young person so that they realize, if you are so unpleasant, so unmanageable, so unruly, so disrespectful that nobody will want to deal with you, this is where you end up. So you have a choice. You can either be that person that nobody wants to be bothered with, or you can get your act together and manage your behavior. And a lot of times that happens. You know, you get a 16, 17-year-old, 14, 15, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and they're real mouthy. They decide, you can't tell me what to do. They start back talking. Next thing you know, the parents say, okay, you grown, get out. And they might be able to hang around, spend the night on a friend's couch here and there. But if their behavior is just so outrageous, they insist on, they still want to go get high or get drunk or whatever, or start fights, nobody can deal with you. And you will end up on the street. So it does matter. And it's hard. It's hard to, you don't want to judge situations, because sometimes, like you say, children choose to be orphaned rather than stay in a household where they're being mentally, verbally, or physically abused. And so they'd rather take their chances out on the street. Sometimes it isn't the young person's fault and they have to leave a bad situation. Like, your person who was being whipped by somebody who just really didn't know how to handle a child. But then you do have children who are at that stage of transitioning from childhood to adulthood, but they haven't made it to adulthood yet. They don't have wisdom, and yet they resent being controlled or being managed or being told what to do, and they decide to be rebellious. And the parent gets to a point where you realize, since they think they're grown, they need to get out here and experience life, and realize that they're not. And then they get put out the house. And I've seen that happen too. So, there are various things.
I hope we have a caller here.
Yes, you can. Yes, please open their mic.
Okay. Area code 281528. Welcome to the Female Solution. Please state your name and where you're calling from, please.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. This is Ron Foster Sharif calling from Houston, Texas. I hesitated on calling in because this subject that you're on today is so personal and so intertwined with my whole entire life. And I was hesitant about going into it. The first part of my life, I came out of a situation where my mother and father split up. Father went to New York. My mother stayed in Indiana. And I wound up in a foster home. And I think around 2-3 years old. And my uncle came and got me, his brother. And he raised me as his own child. And that was a wonderful experience because he was a different man than his brother. And I'm just going to sort of touch on this part because I don't want to get into a thing where it sounds like I'm judging my mother or judging my father, because to me that's a sin. But for clarity, I'm just saying what happened. Now, I stayed with him and his wife, my auntie, who were just beautiful people. And I stayed with them, and I finally went back
to my mother's home when I was around 13. And that created a lot of conflict for me personally because I had different values than the rest of my siblings. So that created competition and competitiveness and whatnot on that end. Okay, now fast forward to when I got grown. I think I had I once heard Imam Muhammad do a lecture, and he says that a father shouldn't whoop his child, especially a son, I guess, because that will cause resentment in the child later on in life, and that in a lot of cases, the father will never be able to overcome that. I'm sort of paraphrasing that. In that if there is any type of corporal punishment to be done, it should be done by the mother. Okay, now, I had a child. I had 4 children. 3 boys and 1 daughter. Now, one of my child, the oldest child, was outside of my marriage. I've been married like somewhere around, 53 years. But I had this child when I was around 19. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, insisted that I go get this child and raise this child. Even though me and the mother wasn't on good terms. And my wife would even go get the child and bring the child to me to make sure that, because she grew up in a 2-parent household, and that was the type of man that she wanted, somebody that recognized that. So the mother later on got involved with a bank robbery gang. So she wound up going to the penitentiary. So the child was on his own. Again, my wife insisted that we bring that child into our house and raise that child with the rest of our children. Now, that child came into my house, my oldest son, and he created nothing but drama and havoc because he had a whole different set of ideas about life in the streets. And as a consequence, the other son, the middle son, he was a follower. And I never was able to whoop the oldest son because I could never get the good son. But the middle son, oh my goodness, if I hadn't used, and I'm glad what I heard Imam Muhammad say, I heard that later, much later, once he got grown, because I don't know what else I could have done to deal with that middle son. This boy was, like I said, he was a follower. He was involved with gangs, murders,
Wow.
bank robbers, thieves, dope dealers, car thieves. It was a situation where I could not get through to him to be preparing himself for college because he was listening to his older brother, and all they wanted to do was sell dope.
Wow.
Sell dope. And they were involved with some of the most terrible people in the city.
Wow.
As followers. Now, I understand that whole idea about
because you're not supposed to use corporal punishment. But I'm convinced that if I hadn't used corporal punishment, that child would have been swallowed up by the street. He would have either been in the penitentiary and then got killed, or he would have been killed in the street. Now, I had a brother and a sister who also had similar children biologically who were the same way. And that's what happened to them and their children. They were killed in the street.
Wow.
Now, if I hadn't stood strong and rumbled with that middle son like he was a natural, we rumbled like he was a natural man.
Wow.
And my wife got so upset because the violence got so real. But that's all I had. And I had no idea how else to deal with this child to keep the streets from taking him than to rumble with him like a natural man. Because I was not going to let him run my house. I was not going to let the gangs take him. And I mean, he even had gang members had him breaking in my house. He lived there, him and his older brother. Now, the other son, completely the opposite. And today he's just doing outstanding work. But the two oldest sons, now they said that if you want to spoil your grandchildren, then you have to raise your children. Because if you spoil your children, you're going to wind up raising your grandchildren.
Oh.
And that is absolutely true. He had two children, this middle son. He had two children. And wouldn't even buy them a crust of bread. You hear me?
Oh, my.
I was raising them. I don't know where this child got these values at. Okay, but I wound up raising his two children, boy and a girl. And they were absolute delight. In fact, my granddaughter is moving out here to Houston in January to come back to stay with me. And the son that I raised, his son that I raised, that he refused to take care of, and they have a very strained relationship. That son has 4 different degrees. He has a bachelor's and he has 3 master's degrees because he was raised in my house and along with my son who was going along with the program and following my game plan. Well, he graduated from college. But he wound up with 3 master's degrees because he wouldn't listen to me later on about the PhD. So when he went to get the PhD, he just kind of ran out of gas because he had 3 children of his own. And so he wound up doing the 3rd master's degree. But he was an absolute delight, these two grandchildren. But I reflect back, and I am not making any kind of exaggeration. This kid was involved with the worst element. And I used to do work as a biochemist for a major pharmaceutical company. So when the oldest son figured out what I was doing and asked me to show him how to clean up raw cocaine and prepare it into crack, he knew I knew how to do that.
Wow.
Because, when I refused to do that, he went and got his uncle who showed him how to do that. So then all of a sudden, he wanted to be Scarface of Indiana, including when I sent him off to college. and gave him a cell phone. He was using the cell phone to make deals at other universities.
Oh no! Oh no!
I don't know. I don't, and I probably at some point, inshallah, I may try to write a book about these experiences because I'm sure I'm not the only.
That needs to be a
black
book.
Male that has sons, raising black sons, raising a black male. That even affected my daughter.
Mm.
And it was only when my daughter was like close to 40 that our relationship changed to being truly father-daughter. Because she was so caught up by this oldest son that we brought into the house. She was so caught up by his mess. Now, the only son that wasn't affected was the youngest son. He saw him immediately for what he was. And they don't really have a good relationship. Because my youngest son didn't tolerate any of that. But that middle son, and he's got to be 50 to this day. And I mean, the only reason now that he's not in jail or whatnot is that, I guess me and, my younger son and I, we came together. And first now he's grown now, and his kids are grown. I done raised them.
Wow.
But I still see that he's on the same path. So me and my youngest son, we got together. We bought him a food truck because he had skills as a chef. We recognized that. So we bought him a food truck. The food truck did well. It did so well that he was able to advance to, we invested and got him a restaurant, brick and mortar restaurant that's just doing outstanding work. But even to this day, he has this resentment for all the good that I have done because I had to put my hands on it. But that's all I had. And I went to the old cat, that I worked with at this job, and they even gave me counsel, and they said, well, at some point, you're going to have to get in his butt. Now, as a father, if you ain't going to do that, then you're not going to keep your son.
Wow.
So that's the wisdom I was operating on. So I'm going to cut this short because it's kind of getting kind of emotional for me.
Like you say, that needs to be a book because I'm sure there are fathers who are struggling with that same thing and they need to hear your story. That's not an easy decision to make. And the fact that there's still resentment, even though you didn't appear to have a choice on how you were going to get that behavior under control. It's unfortunate that the people that you love, they push you to a point where you end up having to do something you don't want to do, which is use violence. But they come to you damaged, and so what else can you do to bring them back into sanity? So, like you say, the streets don't destroy them. So that's a hard choice, and you did what you knew is best and with the right intentions, and ultimately you see a child who did evolve into some level of self-control.
I had to comment on that because I heard Kareem and Bilal telling that story, and that their what they had to say touched me so deeply. I just had to comment on that. So
well, thank you so much.
Right there, I've taken up enough of the time, but I just wanted to throw that out there that In some cases, I don't know if I would use the term, be correct in using the term extenuating circumstances, but for lack of a better phrase, I'll use that when it comes to corporal punishment. Thank you.
Understand.
May Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you sharing that story. That's not easy. That's not an easy thing to go through. And I don't judge anybody for doing their best when their intention really was to try to help a child who has gone astray. And you know what the consequences are. If you can't bring them back, then they're going to be lost to the streets. And if you've seen other children end up dead, you don't want to see that happen again. So I appreciate your sincerity in doing the best you knew how. And ultimately, all of us have to appreciate our parents for doing the best they knew how. And even the parents that might have been what felt like abusive, understand that they did the best they knew how, given the scars that they had coming into parenting, which a lot of our parents did. So the first thing you want to do in your life is to forgive the people who raised you, and forgive them if they couldn't raise you and had to hand you over to someone else. And, forgive them if the people that they handed you over to were worse. But everybody's doing the best they know how, and we don't always know how. So that's the challenge.
Naima, we have to accept that we will lose some. We will lose some.
Yeah, that's the painful part. We will lose some.
Yes, that's the hurting part. I'm aware of a young lady that was creating havoc with her parents. She wanted the street life, the wayward life.
Mm-hmm.
And she entered that life. And after a passing of time, she called her mother and asked, could she come back home? She said that she realized that she was a job, that managing herself, her affairs, was a huge responsibility. That she became aware that she was incapable of meeting some of the obligations. And she asked, could she come back home? Sometimes we have to let them go.
Yes.
And pray to God that God protects them. But the streets have a way of bringing you back to your sanity, if there's any sanity left in you. So I'm just saying that sometimes we can't save them all. But those that we can save them. But there are some you just have to let go. This world is a teaching environment. And hopefully, through their experiences, they will come to the realization, I need guidance. I need to be protected from myself. And they come to
yes. I need to be protected from myself. You're right. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes you have to let them go. You have to let them learn the hard way. But once they learn it, they got it. So it's painful. But sometimes that's the only way they're going to get the lesson. And like you say, some we're going to lose. You have another caller?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let's open that mic for the other caller. Go right ahead.
Area code 312-882. Welcome to the Female Solution. Please state your name and where you're calling from, please.
We are God Shalom. We don't die, we multiply. Black is beautiful as you are. A superstar. Naima Latif, Minister Robert Floyd Trump, Chicago, Illinois.
Yes.
And how are you, Brother Kareem? Assalamu alaikum to the family.
Salam, my brother.
Yes.
May God continue to bless you and the work that you're involved in.
Hallelujah. Yes, well, you know, I'm back on Can TV, Dame. I've been trying to reach you too, but God is good and the greatest and the best knower. You know, we've been promoting, you know, the Harold Washington Foundation.org for more information. People can keep in touch with me there, as well as Robert Plump Facebook page. And Brother Kareem, I want you to go to Robert Plump Facebook page and look and observe all the other brothers and sisters, men, women, and children, because we all about help save the children.
Yes.
And we do have to let go and let God, and we have to even refrain from being, you know, violent. I learned to stop being violent when I got back from Vietnam, you know. But also, Bill Washington is a World War II veteran. And it's so much to learn better, to know better, and to do better. See, information is what you all really got. It's in the book, too. See, B equals to 23, so the female solution, I always tell Sister Naima that she's a 23 superstar, like a baby Oprah Winfrey. And we need you, Sister Naima, to be the good superstar sister on your own birthday. We tell everybody, they tell Oliver,
Yes.
Oliver, tell Brandon Johnson, you know, to vote yes for the Harold Washington Peace Parade. It's the only peace parade in the world that I know of.
Well, we appreciate you having it. We do appreciate, and I'm glad you were able to get through. I know you're having some technical difficulties, and I had a few technical difficulties this morning. So I tested, you know, make sure our line is working now. And I guess there are people who are listening in, and glad you called in on the AM 360 line. And I'm looking forward to possibly even joining you on your show on Can TV. You know, feel free to invite me in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate the fact that you're on. Yes. So thank you so much.
Wednesday, I call a day because we're going to be on there at 5:30 to 6. And then check out all of my different episodes. Each one of them is a fantastic opportunity for us to come together and promote unity in the community, help save the children. Everybody can help stop the violence, robbery, stealing, and killing, and the looting, and all of the nonsense, and even the drugs. We had Brother Calvin Muhammad on there, which was one of the Million Man March, and we continues with the struggle, the movement, and the coalition. And brothers and sisters can reach me direct at 312-882-5935.
Well, thanks so much, brother. We certainly appreciate it. And we're hoping that I think maybe Can TV has, we can stream live so those who are outside of Chicago can catch your show. So we thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you on Can TV 21 tonight. And we're gonna pause for just a moment. Because I want to share with our listening and viewing audience. And thank you so much, Minister Plum. Looking forward to seeing you tonight on TV. You know, it's hard. It's hard dealing with the loss of a loved one. It's hard when our children are not prepared, and it's hard when we're not prepared. But this season, there's been so many transitions that have happened, and so many people that are grieving, and so many people whose children are in distress, and so many families that haven't figured out how to make the adjustments. So I thought it was a good time for me to share my story. I've done it on a couple of shows, but sometimes people need to be reminded so that they don't feel such despair. So we're going to take about 8 minutes to share this story with our listening and viewing audience. And we're going to come back and just kind of wrap up with a thought on how we can be there for our loved ones, even if they've lost a loved one, because truly no one is ever lost. And that's a wonderful lesson that I was able to learn, that I want to share with you so that you may not be in distress if you have had to make adjustments because someone in your life has transitioned. So I want to share with you now.
I'm Naima Latif. Are you grieving over the loss of a loved one? What actually happens when you die? What would happen if a departed loved one came back to you and told you exactly what they were experiencing? Well, that's what happened to me. So I want to share my experience with you so that you know for certain that your loved ones are still right here and they can talk to you if you're ready to listen. I can show you how. It's right here in this book, Visits from the Dream State. In May of 2006, my husband, Sultan Abdul Latif, was diagnosed with colon cancer. The doctors gave him about 1 year to live. But we were living a healthy lifestyle. We believed in healthy eating. And we said, oh, we can beat this. They had advised chemotherapy, but we said, no, we're going to try some healthy herbal treatments that we've read about. And sure enough, a year later, Sultan was still here. But he was still rapidly losing weight. And even with our healthy eating and healthy lifestyle and herbal treatments, we could see that the illness was progressing. By July of 2007, he had lost quite a bit of weight, and so we decided to go ahead and try the chemotherapy. But even after months of chemotherapy, we could see that his transition was imminent. Now, we, of course, were devout Muslims, and we believed in an afterlife. But there's one thing to have a faith. There's another thing to have certain knowledge based on experience. My husband Sultan was about to go into the great unknown, where we all go eventually. But I wanted more than just a faith. I wanted a no. So I made him promise that when he ultimately transitioned, that he figure out a way to come back and tell me exactly how it is. Well, I want you to know he kept his promise. A few days after his funeral, he began visiting me in spirit. I kept a notebook by my bed and recorded every time he visited me. My husband, Sultan, and I, we were partners in life. We produced TV shows together. We produced a stage play together. We wrote books together. And after a few months of recording his visits, I realized this was yet another book we were writing together. And that notebook evolved into this book, Visits from the Dream State. You know, our religions don't teach us that we can still contact a loved one after they have left their physical bodies. So we assume we can't do it or we're not supposed to do it. You know, all over the internet, there are people who are describing near death experiences where they've died and gone to heaven and met with loved ones. And then ultimately they decided it wasn't yet their time, so they came back to Earth. Well, I didn't have a near death experience, but I did, with the help of my husband Sultan, leave my body and enter the spirit realm where he now resides. And we could get together and talk. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? You know, when we were first standing there together in spirit, at first I was like, are we supposed to be doing this?
I mean, are we breaking any rules? But apparently, it's okay. There are no rules. Now, many people may be afraid because of whatever they've been taught. But the reality is, we can contact our loved ones who are in spirit because we too are spirits. Now, it's been 17 years since my husband's transition, and we have kept in touch. I have visited him in spirit. I have seen what looks like a college campus, and I have been inside a classroom where apparently he's enjoying taking classes. We've talked, we've discussed friends and family members. We've talked about my personal life. We have been able to keep a relationship, even though my work here is not yet done. And he's having an amazing adventure where he now resides. Now that I know what I know, and I've seen what I've seen, I want to share it with you so that you too can discover what I discovered. When I was seeking information, it was like being a scientist, exploring, experimenting, and ultimately discovering the formula for how to
90 seconds.
with the essence of my husband. Now that I know what I know, I have absolutely no fear of death, nor do I ever grieve. I am at absolute perfect peace. And you can be at perfect peace as well. Get the book.
60 seconds.
Go to www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. It's on sale now. Just $10 plus shipping and handling. And if you order by Monday, December 16th, you'll receive the holiday special of one free book with your order. Give it to a friend who's grieving so they too can be in perfect.
10 seconds.
So that was the message we certainly wanted to share with you all before we go. And thank you all for listening. And Brother Kareem, we appreciate you so very much for listening in and always being a wonderful co-host. And thanks to our listeners for sharing their stories. We appreciate the fact that all of us are doing the best we know how. And I wanted to share that very personal experience that's on my YouTube channels and Facebook pages. But now is the time where people are going through distress. And it's a very personal story, but I chose to share it because I want people to see the reality of our continuing existence so that we can choose to be responsible for how we treat each other all the time. Because this life doesn't end, but we do experience the results of our treatment of each other. And so let's choose to always treat each other with love. So, Brother Kareem, you've got the last word before we go?
Yes, the spirit never dies. God has said that. The spirit never dies. Almighty God says, speak not of my servants as dead, for they live. but you perceive it not.
Absolutely.
I'll end with that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and come on back tomorrow. We're right here on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show, and we'll be joining Veggie Brunch Live with Angela. And until that time, we want you all to continue to shine your light. See you next time.
Thank you for you.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.